Let's put it to like here, so it's just kind of faintly in the background. Alright, Mass Effect 1 finished. We'll do a little review like we always do. Just, this one will be super, super quick though, because this game is very short, a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. It came out in 2007. Mass Effect, very much loved by a lot of the gaming community. I have played many BioWare games before this, but I never actually took in an effort or made an effort to get into this game very much. So, yeah, my mate at high school used to talk about it all the time. I used to even watch him play it. I remember when he was waiting for Mass Effect 3 to come out. And, yeah, that's my history with the game before I played. But we got through it in about... Did we play this in 3 days? We beat it in 3 days, guys. But honestly, we could have probably beaten it in 2 had I known it was this short. What did I like about Mass Effect 1? I felt like, okay, for its time, there's a lot of the mechanics in this game is pretty good, and obviously I feel like this game paved, or at least pathed the way to, you know, modern RPGs and all that jazz. But I feel like this game does show its age in certain regards, and I'm glad that it was fairly short. I enjoyed most of this, but sometimes I got really tilted. Let's talk about the good stuff first, and then we'll talk about the bad stuff right after. So, how everything looks in this game is pretty good for 2007, I'm not gonna lie. The setup they've got, the storyline, the animations of the characters, the writing is all great, the voice acting is fantastic as well. We played as Femshep, so we got to hear all of the female Commander Shepard lines, which were all really, really well done. You guys told me that the male Shep has all the memes, but the Femshep voice acting is pretty good. I quite agree. We played as the soldier class, so very vanilla staple, and we picked up all the characters in the game pretty quickly. We lost Rex halfway through this, which you guys were traumatized about, and we also lost Ashley when I had to choose between Ashley and the other guy. So that was how this game played out for us. I feel like overall, my favourite part of this game is listening to the characters talk to one another and listening to the story unfold. Watching the cutscenes, watching the animations when you're landing on planets from the ship, the kind of general atmosphere that the game gives you, the kind of ambience of like being in space with your space crew, is definitely the best part about this game, in my opinion. We'll see how Mass Effect 2 changes, because maybe the gameplay will be a lot more kind of... the gameplay will be a lot more fulfilling when I get to that game. You guys have all told me Mass Effect 2 is a huge jump, and it's a really great game all round, so I'll wait and see and hold my judgment until then. But this game feels clunky sometimes. It feels clunky when you're running. The menus feel clunky. I played on PC, and or at least some of the menus. I'll explain that in a minute, rather than just say like, you know, all of it's bad, because that's not true. The when I was trying to get this game to run on PC, I ran into a bunch of problems. I ran into problems launching the game, which was an easy fix eventually. I also ran into problems with sharing the screen with you guys here on Twitch. So on OBS, when I was playing on full screen mode, the menus for both the squad and the inventory flickered like a motherfucker the whole time, so I ended up playing on a small window, which fixed the problem luckily. But these things are, worth mentioning, not really to do with the story itself, but if you're trying to run this on PC, it's a bit of a ball ache at times, depending on what system you're running and whatnot. But combat was a bit alright at times. Felt like towards the end of the game, a lot of the enemies are just meat sponges, which is a bit of a shame. You can do a pretty good job of counterbalancing your weapons to deal with the certain enemies. So obviously you've got your human, or your organics, or whatever they're called, they're organic, I don't know. The human enemies, the robot enemies, the synths, and then you've got your shielded enemies as well. So you can like counterbalance your weapons and build your teammates around that maybe to deal with them. But I felt like some of the combat towards and halfway through this game was a bit tedious at times. The rover, the Mako rover, is one of the things I do remember about playing this in the back in the day when I played my first like four hours or whatever it was of the game. I remember the rover levels, and I think that's where I stopped playing. Rover's worth mentioning. I enjoyed driving about, but it was so tilting to drive through an entire level, die to a rocket when I got out of the car, and then reset all my progress. That was pretty miserable. There's an autosave in this game, but it happens very irregularly, and you can get kind of just one-tapped at times, and that's pretty frustrating. So yeah, bear that in mind if you're going to give Mass Effect 1 a spin. Just make sure you quick save regularly, which is something I tried to do as much as possible, but even then it wasn't enough. Sometimes you will literally walk around the corner, a rocket will hit you, and you will die, depending on which type of build you're playing, and it's very, very underwhelming to go back and play through, 20 minutes of gameplay again, or talk to characters again. I feel like running around the Citadel was really good, flying about in space, and obviously the flexibility and being able to choose where you're going. The Citadel obviously has some quests, side quests. Some of the planets you land on have side quests. That's all fun and games. I personally didn't bother to have a look at most of that stuff, mostly because I wasn't really paying attention to the level up system and or the economy in this game. I didn't pay attention to my money very often. I don't actually think, in the entire game, I don't think I bought any weapons from any merchants ever, which is maybe a reason why the final boss was a bit miserable when you're fighting upgraded Saren when he's flying about the room. But a lot of my guns were maybe a bit under-leveled, which is maybe why that boss fight was particularly arseholy. But I didn't bother buying new weapons from vendors. I just couldn't be arsed. The game throws hundreds of weapons at you. Most of them are the same gun. You can spread them out amongst your teammates, but for the most part, I just didn't. I mentioned to the chat while we were playing through, I feel like when you play an RPG, you can have a fine balance between like having lots of options to choose from and then having too many things. If the game throws 10 weapons at you every time you open a crate, it gets a bit like, oh dude, I've got a million guns, a million upgrades, a million sets of armor. I just kind of stopped caring quickly. I feel like it didn't really matter too much, and therefore I didn't want to sit in and change my weapons and armor every time I opened a crate because there's tons of it. So maybe that could have been balanced a little bit better. Sometimes I feel like, I said this a lot recently when looking at like various video games, but sometimes less can be more when it comes to this kind of stuff. If you have too much choice as a player, it can feel a bit kind of... but that's just me, personally. Maybe some people loved shopping and upgrading all their gear and stuff, but I feel like a lot of players will just ignore it and push through for the story, which is ultimately what I was doing towards the end of this game. I feel like for its time, I feel like Mass Effect 1 is really good. It starts off as the kind of foundations of what will hopefully be a great franchise when I play through 2 and 3. It definitely shows its age though. Definitely shows its age. The gameplay is subpar, in my opinion. Some of the mini-games are exciting, and the dialogue and writing is probably the best part about the game. But yeah, that's my review. I feel like I hope the Mass Effect 2 is better, but I still kind of enjoyed that. I feel like I forced myself through parts of it, and some of the chit-chatting got a bit kind of boring at times, but for the most part I think the story kept me hooked, and ultimately that's why we were playing, so not a bad effort. We'll see.